Really, what that tells us more about the broader story about EV demand and the fact that it's not living up to those initial expectations.
GM and Ford can't sell EVs. They're shutting down production, firing thousands of workers, and could even close their doors forever. Stellantis, GM, and Ford are unable to sell EVs. The public is relieved that the alarming threat to shut down EVs has been lifted, but the politicians who have been promoting EVs are all confused and afraid. After losing more than $5 billion on electric vehicles and receiving thousands of complaints from loyal customers about EVs catching fire and killing people, Ford and GM are suddenly paying attention to consumers and are against the political push for electric automobiles. Let's look into it. The Biden administration forced them to sell EVs by threatening to penalize them severely if they didn't. GM CEO Mary Barra even made a serious mistake that might lead to the company's ultimate demise. Still, the big three are already returning. Are electric vehicles a scam? Why is GM's CEO hurting her own company? And why is the middle class being harmed by strict EV regulations? Last year, the Biden administration significantly restricted the use of gas-powered cars, following the example set by the European authorities. Apart from enforcing an absurd regulation mandating that 7 out of 10 vehicles produced by 2032 be electric, regardless of our opinion, they also put pressure on Ford, GM, and Stellantis to increase the number of EVs they sell. Big automakers were enraged as well as worried by the existing horrors of our infrastructure for charging EVs and their propensity to murder people. In addition, the government has effectively threatened to withhold $14 billion from automakers should we decide against buying these EVs and instead go with gas-powered cars. And remember that Biden wants the percentage of electric vehicles in automobiles to increase from the current 7% to 70% in just 8 years. GM, Stellantis, and Ford are afraid, fearing they might lose billions of dollars as a result of this swift shift to the age of electric vehicles. Why? Their beloved fleets, which mostly depend on trucks, cannot be converted to electric power with a short trip to the mechanic. Because it's a major overhaul of the entire system, they're all anxious about the potential loss of money. The Biden team envisions electric automobiles, but the manufacturers are now in a bit of a problem. Businesses have to fulfill government expectations in addition to trying to avoid running out of money left and right. Gas-powered cars generate revenue, electric vehicles do not. And in the midst of all this EV chaos, the United Auto Workers Union is doing more than just watching. They are adding their own concerns to the mix, believing that this switch to electric vehicles would put employment at risk, considering that GM and Ford have laid off thousands of employees to save costs. To start with, here's the big surprise. Ford's electric car status is not great. The astounding $4 billion in losses has sent the CEO and dealers into a frenzy. Imagine a situation where hundreds of workers are let go in less than a week and all those shiny new electric cars are just sitting there collecting dust. It's like seeing a car crash in slow motion. You can't look away. You might be wondering why more people aren't embracing electric vehicles. It turns out that this is more than just simply bad luck. Consider the following nearly starting a revolt against the sale of EVs. The president at the White House is being cautioned by over 4,000 dealers to hold off on making this full EV drive. It appears that they have noticed the warning signs, and they do not indicate a bright future for power. Despite price cuts, government subsidies, and other inducements, those EVs aren't exactly flying off the lot. Take the Ford F-150 Lightning, for example. Dealers like Mickey Anderson were at first quite excited about it, but in the end, they sold a very small percentage of what they thought would be the next big thing. They're trying desperately to get rid of their massive excess by providing prices that are far lower than Black Friday deals. But hold on, this gets thicker. There are other factors besides cost that discourage EVs. There's a litany of reasons why they're being avoided. Some say they're simply too costly, while others find it challenging to locate a spot in their home to charge them. In addition, there's the never-ending queue at public charging outlets. To make matters worse, Ford has recalled an incredible 35,000 of its Mustang Mach-E EVs. You really read that correctly. 35,000! It transpires that the primary contactors of the high-voltage batteries in these cheap electric vehicles have a small issue that makes them overheat and lose all of their power. Beautiful. However, this is more than just a little dot on the map. This recall is noteworthy since it follows another one from June 2022, during which Ford tried to resolve the problem by updating its software. What do you know though? It was far from satisfactory. The National Highway Traffic Safety Administration was compelled to step in and open an inquiry in August. And now, another recall is on our plate. Instead of just making small software adjustments, Ford is replacing the high-voltage battery junction box for the extended-range vehicles this time. Think about this. When new materials like nickel and lithium are depleted, the supply chain is more negatively impacted, driving up already exorbitant prices. However, some people just choose not to pay attention. Among the trio, GM CEO Mary Barra made the most mistakes. Here's the scariest news yet to come. There's a chance that the CEO is to blame for General Motors' impending bankruptcy. Barbara struck a $19 million deal with LG to produce all the battery components, including nickel, necessary to build what they describe as the largest cathode factory in the United States in Tennessee, despite the recent and widely publicized collapse of the EV industry. They want this factory to start making batteries by 2026. That does seem incredibly ambitious, yes, but this is when things start to get interesting. Barra is making significant investments in the electric vehicle market, yet it doesn't seem like GM sells many EVs. Compared to Tesla sales, their 24% one-quarter drop in sales is negligible. The electric cars made by GM appear to be a drop in the ocean, and just when you thought things couldn't get much worse, hear about the labor strikes. GM lost $800 million as a result of a major setback to its profitability. It became so bad that at one point they were losing about $200 million every week. GM was obliged to stop producing several of its electrified cars, such as the GMC Sierra EV, Equinox EV, and Silverado EV, due to the low sales. They seem to have stopped playing in their own match. Moreover, the EUV and Chevy Bolt EV, which are both about to be phased out, made up the majority of the EVs they were able to sell. Thus, the future doesn't appear too bright for them. Despite all of this outrage, Mary Barra isn't going to back down and won't be cutting the price of their electric automobiles. She seems to be ignoring the apparent problems and living in a sort of a bubble. Not to mention Cruise, GM's attempt at an automated car. For GM, it has been a huge headache, costing an incredible $2.7 billion in the previous year. There is nonetheless still some hope. By reducing car emissions, the US Environmental Protection Agency, or EPA, hopes to achieve these new rules. According to estimates, new cars should be around 56% cleaner by 2032 than they are now. Despite the fact that no one is being pushed to manufacture just electric cars, the math indicates about 2/3 of new cars must be EVs in order to reach those targets. Now, you would think the automakers would be all over this given their high EV commitments. Nope. They're making a big deal out of saying it's too much, too soon. GM, for example, is telling the EPA to hold your horses. Let's stick to the goal we discussed with President Biden of having 50% electrified vehicles by 2030. Next are Honda, who is effectively stating, don't take our EV vows too seriously. Please subscribe to our channel and share your ideas with us in the comment section for additional details.